It used to be those bowl games that were all the talk this time of year, and it's just about anything but, especially talking Oklahoma football these days, comings and goings to get to. We will do that over the next few minutes here with John Hoover, all Sooners on Fan Nation. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Mark. You're right. We used to care about these bowl games, and now everything that anyone cares about has to do with the transfer portal or hires or who's leaving, who's coming in. Crazy stuff. The way this sport has changed has been remarkable over the last few years.
Absolutely. And everyone, we appreciate your comments and questions. This is Sooners Live right here at the Voice of College Football. John Hoover joining us again from All Sooners on Fan Nation. It's amazing when I have conversations with you and a zillion other people involving their teams. The bowl game is just a complete afterthought and right down the list of priorities and topics to discuss. And I'm actually going to start with that because I'm going to fly in the face of of what everybody else is thinking about, because I still love the bowl games and I still love bowl season, and they get made fun of now and disregarded, but people still watch them. The TV ratings show us that, and I understand it's the holidays and people just love watching football, so they're going to flip the games on. But this is depending on who shows up, and we know Dylan Gabriel's not going to be there, of course, but who shows up for both of these teams. This is a pretty darn good matchup when you look at Arizona taking on Oklahoma. If you just enjoy good football.
Yeah, it's two teams that are kind of on the rebound, on the rise. Early in their coach's tenure, Brent Venables' second season, Jed Fish's third season. He's got a little bit of a head start there, I think. But just in terms of what he wants the program to look like, Jed Fish, you look at his coaching staff, he's put together some real serious NFL background coaching staff. And of course, he's got a very broad and diverse NFL background himself. So that's what you would expect. He's put together some hard hitters in that coaching lineup. And when it comes to Oklahoma, this is still Brent Venables' first staff. He's had to replace one guy at one position. He said he's done it twice now, but just in terms of what he wants Oklahoma to look like, he was here for a long time before, so he knows what he wants Oklahoma to look like. So both these guys kind of reshaping the program in their image at this point, and here we are in San Antonio, just about a mile from the Riverwalk on December 28th, and they're going to try to settle something. I don't know. These bowls feel more and more and more like exhibitions like they used to be in the 50s and 60s, like they didn't really count, and nobody really cared about them, and who cares if they won or lost. That's what they feel like now, is like they're just exhibitions if you're not in the playoff.
No, that's a great historical perspective on it, because yes, the polls did not recognize them. They were much like exhibitions. And then I guess just as they just gained, first of all, just great matchups, of course, amongst teams that never played each other and were just showcased at a time of year where people were just starved to watch football, that they then became the most important thing. It was the most important thing that a certain school reached the Sugar Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, and now we're on the other side of that peak. So it's kind of interesting, but I am gaining a little bit of optimism this season in hearing out of some major teams who has decided to play that doesn't need to play. So I think maybe we've hit, hopefully, a floor in regards to opt-outs, or a ceiling, depending on how you look at it. So where do we stand on the Oklahoma situation involving who's expected to play?
Well, Brent Venables had his two biggest recruits come back. A couple of 2-year starters, a couple of 3-year starters, I should say, come back for their senior season next year. And that's Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman, the all-star linebacker and the all-star safety. You got one guy that's the leader of the defense, spiritually, statistically, in every way possible. He's the leader of the Oklahoma defense, and in a lot of ways is the leader of the team, Danny Stutzman. And then you've also got Billy Bowman, who's just been tremendous during his junior season. Closed the season really strong, finished with, I think, 6 interceptions, 3 pick sixes this year for Billy Bowman. That's otherworldly information to add to your resume when you're a college football player. So to get those guys back, they both said no. They both looked into the NFL draft and they both said no. Stutzman actually told Venables that he was going to go to the draft. Coach, I'm going to go to the draft. I just wanted you to know. And then they worked it out and they had some more conversations. He talked to his dad and he came back and he said, you know what, Coach, I'm coming back for my senior year. So he was that close. To have both those guys back is a massive win for Oklahoma as they transition into the SEC.
You mentioned the coaching staff and what Jedd Fisch has done at Arizona. Obviously, Brent Venables still establishing what he's going to do, and you're always going to have attrition, especially when you're successful, which is a good thing. Seth Littrell being promoted to offensive coordinator, does that seem just like a move to say, okay, this guy has a ton of experience, so we're safe with him, plus he's been in the system, so it just makes sense. We like what we're doing and what we have done on offense. Let's just keep it going.
Yeah, it's goes two different ways. And I mentioned earlier the one position that he's replaced twice. This is the first position that he's had to replace other than that position, which is the quarterbacks and the offensive coordinator. So, 2 full years with one position coach needing to be replaced is not bad. But then you start having some success and you see Mississippi State comes in and hires your offensive coordinator to be the head coach there in Starkville. And that's Jeff Lebby going on. So the way Brent phrased it is exactly what I think is kind of what I predicted. It's the safe hire to bring a guy off your analyst staff, former player, Oklahoma native. It's the safe hire, but it's also the right hire because Seth Littrell's resume, I guess, his offensive mind, his background is that of a daring play caller, a play caller who, as a former fullback, of course, he likes to run the football. He likes to run power formations, but he's got a diverse background. He's got a little Texas Tech in him. He's got a little Baylor in him. He's got Larry Fedora in his background. He's got Kevin Wilson in his background. He's got obviously Mike Leach in his background. And so he's got a lot of different varied backgrounds to come from, play calling wise, structure, what you want the offense to look like. So he's, yes, the safe hire, no doubt about it, because he was on the staff and he knows the area, he knows the recruiting, he knows a lot about Oklahoma. He's steeped in the tradition. His dad was a great player back in the 70s for Barry Switzer. But now you spin that forward and say, what have you done lately? And you look at his offenses at North Texas, where Graham Harrell was his offensive coordinator. He's an offensive mind, and he's very accomplished, and he knows what he wants. He's been a head coach for 7 years. He knows what he wants it to look like. So I think players are extremely excited about getting to play for Seth Littrell.
Yeah, it's a great position to be in when you've got arguably one of the best offensive coordinators in the game, and then he moves on and you got a guy right on staff that has this level of experience. I don't know how many places have that luxury. We got John Hoover here from All Sooners on Fan Nation. And John, the best way to find your YouTube channel is just your name, right?
Yeah, John Hoover Media.
Bam, right there. You can just click on over, find John's work right there. Is there a regular schedule of when you go live or when you post videos?
We post our podcast on Wednesdays. So that new one went up yesterday. There's been so much going on. It's been so crazy, Mark. We do like an hour-long podcast during the regular season, 40 minutes sometimes. December comes along, and these things are stretching out into 2 hours. So there's just so much to talk about.
And we appreciate you stopping by because I know you got a lot going on. These other additions, the analyst route, you got Jack Lowry, Tennessee, Ty Hatcher coming in from Texas A&M. And there's a lot of background there that seems to be interesting in that Jack Lowry was a Missouri quarterback. He's worked under Josh Heupel. Yep. Of course, there's an obvious connection there. Just your thoughts about those analysts.
Yeah, when you reach out and talk to people about these guys, they're both extremely young coaches who are just getting their career started. But there's a look back at their playing career, look back at their, as under the coaches that they were playing for, and you start to piece together quotes, old quotes, 3 or 4 year old quotes from coaches who they worked under. And you see them say way back in 2017, way back in 2019, that guy's going to be a coach. That guy has a coach's mind. That guy comes from a coaching family. And here we are in 2023. You see the future has arrived, and they're coaching at Oklahoma. So Ty Hatcher was a quarterback at Samford, where his dad was the head coach. And then Jack Lowry was Drew Lock's backup at Missouri. His offensive coordinator was Heupel. And then he goes to Tennessee. Heupel goes to Tennessee, and who does he bring with him as his assistant quarterbacks coach? Jack Lowry. So I think that's a pretty good recommendation to have both those guys on the staff, and that will help Seth Luttrell in a big way too, because the Oklahoma's assistant quarterbacks coach went with Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State, and so these guys come in, and there was some concern about from the Oklahoma fan base about Seth Luttrell, head coach, offensive coordinator. He's been focused as a position coach on tight ends and fullbacks, running backs at Texas Tech, right? And he's never coached quarterbacks. We can't have a coach in here who's never coached quarterbacks be our quarterbacks coach. Well, that's why you bring in these assistant coaches and these GAs to help you with the coaching.
Folks, as you can see on the banner there, Oklahoma Sooners Live, number 141. So we've done this for almost 3 years, at least once a week, typically once a week. And guys like John here, we bring on as guests to keep this rolling. So here's the deal. We're on an Oklahoma channel right now that is no longer ours. So that belongs to SG1 Sports. You can watch us here, but we would like for you to watch us. We've got an SEC channel that we just launched. We're simulcasting right there. We've got a Big 12 channel that will go away in regards to Oklahoma, obviously. So we're simulcasting. So please subscribe. Check out the SEC channel. We've got a lot of great stuff. We talk to tons of SEC folks there every week. All right. Before we get to the additions, John, man, this running back room got hit. Tyree Walker's a guy that when everybody else was breaking down around him, he turned out to be the workhorse for a large portion of the season. So he's decided to move on. Marcus Major, Dalen Smothers, who obviously hasn't accomplished much in college, but had a big billing coming in to the college ranks from high school. The emergence of Gavin Sawchuk had that much of an impact for those guys to scatter?
Yeah, I think so. Taylor Tatum, the number 1 ranked running back in the country in high school right now, he's also coming in. Xavier Robinson, who's just 6'2", 220, he averages 9 or 10 yards a carry in high school there at Carl Albert High School, like 16, 17-time state champs, Carl Albert, just up the road from the University of Oklahoma. So he's committed to Oklahoma for 2024. They just keep reloading. They just keep reloading that running back position. I know Dalen Smothers talked to his coaches in high school, and he had big dreams of being the next great Sooner running back after missing his senior year of high school. It was a transfer snafu, and he couldn't play senior year of high school. So he was really looking forward to getting to Oklahoma and having a huge impact. And, for one reason or another, true freshman, some uncertainty at the running back position where they ran in, I think, literally 4 different guys at one point. 4 different guys were RB1 for Oklahoma. They couldn't choose. They were letting it develop. And finally, Tyree Walker was the guy in the middle of the season, and Gavin Sawchuk was the guy at the end of the season. And that's kind of where it stood. Marcus Major decided to take his final year of eligibility. He's had some really nice contributions over the years, but he's had trouble staying healthy and I think there was an eligibility situation with him one time as well. So just when you put it all together, Tyree Walker still hadn't gotten his scholarship. He was still a walk-on, even though he was leading the team in rushing at one point this season. So those 3 guys, decided this is my opportunity to enter the transfer portal.
I'm seeing 4 pretty major additions here. You got a running back, Samuel Martin, played at Tennessee Martin. We can certainly consider level of play there, but over 1,300 yards, 6.2 per carry, 11 touchdowns. Spencer Brown, an offensive lineman from Michigan State. The cornerback from San Diego State, Des Malone, who's been a 2-year starter, at 47 tackles this past year. The guy that I'm most familiar with would be the Purdue wide receiver Deion Burks, who caught 47 balls despite Hudson Card having an uneven season and them having better quarterback play in the past, with Aiden O'Connell still 7 touchdowns through the air. So your thoughts about these various additions and how impactful these guys might be?
Yeah, Mark, these guys are being brought in to contribute right away, essentially. I guess they need a wide receiver to, replace the guys that they're losing, which includes, of course, Drake Stoops, the number one receiver on the team, top receiving pass catcher in the Big 12, led the Big 12 in touchdown catches, all that stuff. They got to replace him. You never would have thought that they would have to replace an old coach's son, walk on, right? Oh, we got to find somebody to take Drake Stoops' place. But that's how the player that Drake Stoops became made himself into. And it's just been an impressive situation watching his career unfold. So you hit the transfer portal and you say, okay, we need a big play wide receiver. We need someone who's fast, someone who can play the slot, and that's Burks. He's got the burst. He's got, he can play inside, mostly inside, but he can also play outside if you need him to, which is kind of the history of this offense. Samuel Franklin from UT Martin, FCS level, right? 1,300, almost 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's one of the top running backs in the portal this year, frankly. And like Burks is one of the top receivers in the portal. So, from Purdue. So you put those two guys on offense and all of a sudden you've replaced some of those pieces that you didn't really anticipate that you would have to replace. You get some playmakers in place of some guys who you didn't really count on going into, let's say, 2022, 2023 that you would need to replace. You've replaced those spots now. Oklahoma's had some injury situations at cornerback this year. Plus, I think they're anticipating losing their fifth-year senior Woody Washington. Woody started parts of 4 seasons, so I think he's expected to go to the NFL. So Des Malone's going to come in, 2-time All-Mountain West honorable mention guy. He's going to come in and have an impact there. 6'2", 200. He's built. We'll see how it plays out, but he's built right now like a SEC cornerback. I think that's huge. And then, you're losing the transfer. You're losing your left tackle, right? Walter Rouse, the transfer from Stanford. He's graduating, basically. He's finally, his college eligibility is done. So you need somebody to come in and be your left tackle. I think they like the guy they've got, Jacob Sexton, who got some experience as a true freshman, got some experience as a redshirt freshman this year. He's going to play the left tackle. So they're bringing in Spencer Brown, a 2-year starter at Michigan State, to play right tackle. So you're immediately filling those holes that you lost of guys that you needed to replace. And if you look at the 13 or so guys that have entered the transfer portal, there's really only 4 or 5 to this point who you look at and say, Oklahoma really could have used that guy. And in 2024, Oklahoma really could have used him coming back in 2024. One guy was a starter. One guy was a former starter. One guy was previously a starter on the offensive line. And then, of course, the walk-on Tawee Walker. So you're missing some guys that you wish you had back that went to the portal, but you're replacing every one of those guys with impact players.
John Hoover joining us from All Sooners on Fan Nation. Join John right here on YouTube as well. Just John E. Hoover. Bam, it's right there. And you can just click on that, type that in the search bar. You can be there in seconds with tons of Oklahoma football coverage, the very best. That's why we knock on John's door on a regular basis. I get him on here as much as I possibly can, even though he's got a zillion things going on. So, John, we appreciate it. One last thing about National Signing Day, just any particular trends out there, targets, any drama that could be anticipated, or is this class pretty well fortified?
Well, they're expecting a commitment from an offensive lineman out of Tampa on Friday. I won't steal anybody's thunder, but they're expecting another commitment coming up Friday. The guys that they brought in, talked to Brent Venables before I guess he was in San Antonio when he did his last Alamo Bowl press conference. They want to bring in 27 high school players total. They've done the number. They've massaged the numbers and done the math, right? 27 high school players. 20 of those are going to be mid-year guys, January enrollees, and 20. I think the total count is going to be, the total count is going to be somewhere between 35 and 37 new scholarship players. So 20 or so, 27 in the high school ranks, about 10 or 12 in the transfer portal. That's what Oklahoma's counting on come signing day in January to kind of restock this roster. And that's the thing that I was talking on the podcast yesterday, Mark, was Brent Venables is happy because the 42 that he replaced last year is only 37 this year. 37 new guys this year. And that's a number he's pleased with, so that's where we're at in college football.
Exactly.
Is a third of your roster to even 40% of your roster. If you're not, Deion Sanders at Colorado, right? That's a decent number, is a third to 25% minimum, 40%. If you're Deion, you go and get 60, 70 guys. But if you're just a regular old player, a program that's just trying to restock at some positions, you're going to need 40 people. That's crazy, man.
It really is crazy, and I've got a few suggestions on how to not remedy that, but make it a little bit more palatable and still provide these athletes with the opportunities and the freedom that they should have. People get all upset about that, but hey, we can all go to school wherever we want or go pursue an income and a job wherever we want. And they should not be denied that in any such way. But I think there could be a few other things in play, tampering and others that could be addressed to a certain extent would be nice. And then just finally about this class, does it seem to be hitting the mark from a talent standpoint, from a positional needs standpoint? Is it going to be a class? Of course, who knows? The booms and the busts we'll know in 2 or 3 years. But in regards to it looking like an Oklahoma football class that's going to be playing in the SEC.
Well, let's address the booms and the busts first, because let's just get it out of the way. It's going to happen. You're going to have your guys who come in and hit, and you're going to have your guys that never show up, never do anything. I was counting up some numbers from Caleb Williams' 2021 freshman season, right? I spent part of the summer of 2020 in Norman interviewing a bunch of Caleb. What he did, I don't know if you remember, the Sooner Summit, they called it, right? The Sooner Summit. It was something that Caleb and his dad did, organized an unofficial visit on campus, not technically on campus. It was at a local hotel, but they all convened at the campus. It was about 20 guys, and they called it the Sooner Summit, and it was a big deal. And I looked at the roster just yesterday or day before. There's 4 guys left on this team from that freshman class. 4. And there are 2 JUCOs, or 2 transfers, 1 transfer, 1 JUCO, in addition to those 4. So out of a class of 27 guys, you had 6 who finished their career at Oklahoma. That's the reality of this thing. That's how this thing's going to work from now on until new legislation is passed that tamps down the transfers and addresses NIL. So this year, they're expecting 25 to 27, I think, is the number again this year. And, based on who you follow, whether it's On3 or Rivals or 24/7, it's a top 10 class, and it's Brent Venables' 3rd straight top 10 class. So it's what you need to do when you're going into the SEC is stack those recruits. But again, who's going to be here in 3 years? We don't know.
And it creates a constant churn and news cycle and turnover and everything. There's never a shortage of things to talk about, especially for myself. I'm trying to cover everyone.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. It makes it messy when trying to evaluate, okay, where was this team last year and what are they going to be next year? Because it used to be simply, okay, they lost these guys through the NFL draft. They've added this class. There's only going to be so much impact from this class. But here's where they're at. And one big indicator that's still valid, but it's falling by the wayside, would be the total team talent composite. If you look at that, in the past, it's been, okay, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma. Well, that's your playoff. Basically, that's like 80% of your playoff teams over the last 10 years, who's been in the playoff, who's won the game. Oh, they're right at the top of the board. It's a perfect translation. And you've had your outliers like Texas doesn't perform or has not in the past. And Wisconsin's there are those outliers, but pretty much you've been able to say the top of the recruiting rankings, just it correlates right to the college football playoff. But with the transfer portal, that's going to change to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think, and who knows where it's headed in terms of legislation. I mean, we just get a rule passed this week about guys. Nope, they're not ineligible anymore. They're eligible now, and they're eligible immediately. And it's a temporary restraining order, and it's like, what? Where did my college football go? I don't remember signing up for this.
All right, folks, for as much as many of you are discarding the bowl games, I would recommend watching the bowl games, take them for what they are, look at the opt-outs, say, okay, well, I'm going to put this much value in this game or the result of the game, but enjoy the football. That's why we do all this. Enjoy the 3.5 hours of football.
I've never understood the hate for bowl games when early in the season in August, late August and early September, everybody's like, just give me football. I'll watch Division II. I'll watch 1AA. I'll watch MACtion or whatever. And then we get to the bowl games and everybody's like, these bowl games are stupid. I'm like, no, they're not. It's football. Enjoy it.
Yes. And here's the other part of this, John. For the majority of teams, this is when they're going to be watched more than any other game they play. That may not be the case for about 10 or 12 schools in the country that have major rivalry games that draw an enormous TV audience. But for everybody else, when people say that they're inconsequential or they're meaningless, more people are watching Georgia Southern than will ever watch them during a regular season game by far.
Yeah.
And even Power 5 teams. And then the other thing is, hey, do I want to see Oklahoma play TCU every year? Sure. It's a good game. It's usually a nice matchup, but what's so unique about that? But Oklahoma and Arizona, when are those teams ever going to play otherwise? I just love seeing when the matchups come out and saying, we've never seen this before. It's been 40 years since we saw this, or I think that's great.
I think this will be my 25th bowl game, Mark, and I go back home every late December, early January, whenever it is, and I've never had a bad bowl experience covering, being on site for a week or 4 days or whatever it is. I've never had a bad experience at a bowl game. I hear there are cynics around me who say, this bowl, they didn't do this right, and they're okay, fine. I've always found a way to have a good time at a bowl site.
That's awesome. Well, John, do the same this year down at the Alamo Bowl. It's almost always a really good game.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you stopping by. Everybody check out All Sooners on Fan Nation. And again, John E. Hoover is right here on YouTube. Thanks for stopping by, John. Always appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
I'll stay on here for just a second, see if there's anything in the chat, but we appreciate John stopping by, breaking down all that Oklahoma news. So if you're just joining us, of course, you just watch what you missed because this will automatically upload, and you can just, even while we're live streaming, just back it up and watch what you missed, addressing all the transfer portal additions, losses, coaching changes, everything involved, the bowl prep for the Arizona Wildcats. This is a 9-3 football team, not to be taken lightly. They're playing great football down the stretch. So I'm all in on Arizona and Oklahoma in a bowl game, and I cannot think of a time when these two teams have ever played. And of course, they're ships passing in the night to a certain extent because Arizona joins the Big 12 next year, but Oklahoma's leaving the Big 12, which leads me to this. Sooners Live comes your way each and every week. So we're in a situation, as you can see, 141 consecutive weeks that we have delivered Oklahoma football talk here live. You're probably watching us on the Oklahoma channel. Please jump on over to the SEC channel. We will simulcast an R today, this being Thursday, on both the Big 12 channel and the SEC channel. For obvious reasons, we will stop simulcasting on the Big 12 channel, and we would love the audience for you guys to check us out on the SEC channel, everything else that we've got involved, and start to get into the habit of watching Oklahoma Sooners Live over on the SEC channel. Meanwhile, we are certainly thankful for the folks at SG1 Sports. Chris does a great job. We appreciate him for allowing us to continue the broadcast here each week. But we've got the SEC channel, and I will provide that right now because we know sometimes things are difficult to find on YouTube. We just started this channel, the SEC channel, back at the beginning of the season. We got about 500 subs, but we will get the link to you right now, our SEC channel. And here, just in the last few days, we've delivered content on LSU, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, and others. And so here we go. Sorry for the delay, but we will get you the link here. Check out our SEC channel. And here's the link. Bam. So please grab that in the chat. Head on over to the SEC channel. And again, whether you want to check out the rest of the SEC content that we've got, or you're just interested in OU football talk, of course, we're transitioning to the SEC. Therefore, we are delivering our show on the SEC channel. So please join us there. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by again. For those of you just jumping on, we just had a great conversation with John Hoover about everything going on with Oklahoma football, National Signing Day in a week, coaching changes, of course, additions to the staff, Seth Luttrell promoted to offensive coordinator. Great breakdown from John on the transfer portal losses and additions. Next show here at the Voice of College Football. Got tons of records going on this afternoon involving the bowl games on a Saturday, Michigan football. But our next live is at 6 p.m. Eastern time over on the main channel. Join us live. We're going to go through our postseason awards and anything you want to talk about concerning college football, National Signing Day, bowl games, transfer portal, humming. I'm sure there are probably some news items that have already hit the transfer portal today. Speaking of which, hey, why don't we just check it out real quick? It's right here. I make this a usual stop about, every couple hours to see what's in the transfer portal. I go to 247 Sports. Breaking news, Notre Dame gets a commitment from South Carolina kicker Mitch Jeter. In the last hour, we've got Georgia edge transfer Marvin Jones Jr. is expected to visit Florida State. We've got several schools interested in edge rusher Tyler Barron from Tennessee, including Ole Miss. He's got an official visit there. Rocket Sanders, one of the top backs in the SEC at Arkansas, going to South Carolina. South Carolina lands Rocket Sanders. That's huge. Also, this one, MJ Morris, the NC State transfer quarterback, dual threat guy, has posted some impressive games in college football, committed to Maryland. That just happened in the last 12 to 15 hours. All right, some good stuff there. All right, folks, appreciate you being here again. SEC channel, the links in the chat. Please join us there for OU Sooners Live and everything involving the SEC. We will see you at 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Give me a call over on the main channel. We talk college football, 6 p.m. Eastern time, right here at the Voice of College Football. Any other comments coming in? Don't know who Josh is. Chris loves the bowl games. Bishop Frank, thank you so much for that. Hall of Fame family, big salute. And again, yes, love the bowl games. Hate the opt-outs, but love the bowl games. And again, the opt-outs are fairly minimal across the board this season. I think we've hit a threshold where the opt-outs were escalating for a few years. I think they've hit the peak, and we've kind of rested at a place where we can expect first, second round, third round projected players are going to be opt-outs, but that's it. A lot of players that are even going to go in the first, second, third rounds are playing, have decided to play in these bowl games. So that is a good sign. All right, folks, see, it's 6 p.m. Eastern